Off the dome, I'm going to be giving every AFL team's chance in a percentage to make the finals next year in the 2024 season. Before we get started, make sure you like, subscribe, comment down below if you agree with all these percentages I'm going to give you. Follow the TikTok FTFooty and let's continue on with the video. Starting off with Adelaide, the first team. Adelaide's chance in a percentage base. Now, this is not going to add up to 100%, but this is every team's chance of making the final in my eyes in a percentage. Adelaide's chance is a 70% for me. I am so bullish about Adelaide. Yes, their trade window was bad. In fact, for that reason, I'm going to bring them down to 65%, but I think they have a 2 in 3 chance to make the finals. They should have made finals this year or last season. Next year is their year. They're going to be getting better. They're primed to make finals. They could do what Richmond did in 2016 to 17, what Collingwood did to 2017 to 18, is finish out the 8 and the year after burst into the finals. They could do that, but I think that's a pretty fair result, 65%. Brisbane, I think Brisbane have an 89% chance of making the finals. I don't see a world where they don't make finals, but you just never know. With an oldish list, will they bounce back well from that grand final loss? It's always hard with the team that lost the grand final. Look, generally speaking, if a team gets smashed in the grand final, the year after they won't make the 8. But when a team barely loses the grand final, they usually do bounce back pretty well. So in that respect, they should. But just because there is a little bit of jeopardy there, I'm not so confident to say in the 90s. Carlton, I think, are a 98%. I don't see anything going wrong. They've hit the trade window well. They're primed to make finals again. Michael Voss is now proven as a good coach, making prelims. There's stability at that club finally. They should be aiming to make prelims, let alone making finals. I am very confident they will. Now, with Collingwood. Collingwood have a 99%. It would be 100, but nothing's 100% certain in life, right? So I can't give them 100%. Young list, so they're just going to keep getting better, which is just scary to think they could well and truly go on to a dynasty, but I have faith in other clubs that they'll defeat Collingwood and stop them from getting that second flag. It has to be 99%, like your grand final winners. Like I said, good signings, Lachie Schultz, getting Jack Ginnivan out the door as well. They've made some absolutely class signings, got some good picks of Taylor Adams too. Fucking class trade window from them. They'll be making the finals. Essendon next. Now, Essendon are a hard one. For me, Essendon have a 39% chance of making the finals. And there'll be a lot of people putting them above the 50% chance, purely because they do have good young talent there. There's a bit of stability at that club now, so you should see some progression from this season to next season. However, I think Brad Scott is an absolutely phenomenal coach, and thus, I'm under the impression that Brad Scott heavily overachieved last season. So in 2023, I don't think Brad Scott had the list to get anywhere near finals, and the fact that the Dons were close to making finals all throughout the year is staggering, and that proves that he's a great coach, but I don't think they had the list. I think they had a phenomenal trade window, okay? You know what? In fact, because of that trade window, I'll bump them up to a 45%. I think that's fair because Gresham is a great player. Bowen Arrow-Dersman is a great player. They lose Zerk Thatcher, but they get Mackay, who's a good player. And then Goldstein is a great like-to-like replacement for Phillips. So their trade window indicates that maybe their list managers and their board, they're indicating that perhaps they will be making finals and they think they had the list to do so. But I'm still on the side of they're less likely to make the finals than what they will. Fremantle's so hard. Like 2 years ago, you would say yes. After last season, you would say there's no chance. They have the list for me to get in the 8. They just don't have the coach. Are things going to change around? They had an absolutely woeful trade period, losing to Henry Schultz, Joe Hamlin for no compensation, failed list management, failed higher-ups. If they just did well in the trade window, I would have put them as over 50% chance with the 8 because of that core, the spine there they have, which is phenomenal in the midfield. Sarong, Brayshaw, Darcy, having that midfield I think should propel them to finals. But because of the poor trade window and obviously the just complete lack of faith in the higher-ups, the coach, all that kind of things, I'm giving them a 29% chance of making the finals. I think it's basically a 1 in 4 chance they do. And that's being generous. Geelong, I think Geelong for me have a 30% chance of making finals. Now you may be thinking that is awfully low. However, age is going to catch up on Hawkins, on Danger, like it already is. You know, is Cameron past his prime? I think so. Yes, he's obviously a phenomenal player, but I feel like he's getting older, which he is. And for me, their list, their young talent isn't great. They're relying on still old players. They're still going to be recovering from trying to win all those flags with the old talent. They're far more likely to go downhill next season than uphill from the season that just went. I'm not bullish on Geelong. I do see a potential bottom 5, bottom 6 position for them, and that's the reason I've gone with such a low percentage. Maybe stiff, but I'm being fucking brutally honest. We'll go to the GWS Giants next. I give them a 90% chance. Great list, great coach, brilliant game style, a game style that stands up in the big games and in a final series. They're tough, they're hard to beat, and I really like the list they've built there. They've brought in some misfits from other clubs, and they've built them into great players again. Hogan's revived his career. Bedford's a great player. I like them. I like their leadership as well. Toby Green's a phenomenal captain. Overall, I think they're pretty much guaranteed. Gold Coast next. I give Gold Coast a 2% chance. Disrespect on my brother Damien Hardwick, but look, as good as Dimmer might be as a coach, he's not going to get that list over the line. Their trade window was awful, I thought, losing Chol, a player who they kind of relied on. Look, and I guess the chances that Ben King get injured are relatively high given his history. I don't think Damien Hardwick's going to work wonders with that list. It's going to take a while for Damien Hardwick to build a game style that he wants at Gold Coast. Gold Coast have spent years under the Stewie Doo game style under his realm, so it's going to take a while for them to break out of that Stewie Doo game style and go into Dimmer's new one. And for that reason, I don't give them a chance. Hawthorn next. Hawthorn, I think they are primed to make the finals, not next year, maybe the year after. I will give them a 23% chance. That's right, nearly a 1 in 4 chance. Hawthorn, they did well in the trade window. Yes, I've said before, I hate the Jack Gunston trade because it's old and basically done. But they did well. Now they've got Chol, like I mentioned before. They've got some good players. Jack Ginnivan, good talent. Young talent's going to get better every year. That's just how natural progression works. Despite what my first thoughts were, my first impressions, Sam Mitchell is a phenomenal coach. Tactically, he's very astute. Obviously picks up from Alistair Clarkson. And for that reason, because of the coach and the young talent that will obviously get better year after year, I do give them a slight chance of making the finals, but I just don't think they have the quality as of yet. The Melbourne Football Club. I think the Melbourne Football Club... Geez, if you asked me this 2-3 weeks ago, my answer would be very different. Now, as of recording, there are a bunch of allegations towards Simon Goodwin, Clayton Oliver, drug abuse, the Joel Smith, the Stephen May situation. That club is in turmoil. At the time of recording, October the 31st, there are rumours of Goodwin going. There are rumours of Clayton Oliver going. So, assuming that, there's a bit of stability that will come to that club, I do give them a... Look, it was a 99% chance. But after all this turmoil, it's now an 85%. And yes, that's still enormously high, but there is for me a 15% chance that with all this Goodwin shit, the Oliver shit, all this fractures in the culture and just clear issues in the playing and the coaching staff, that's why there's a little chance that shit could hit the fan and it all goes wrong. North Melbourne, I actually give them an 8% chance to make the 8. A little bit like Damien Hardwick's Gold Coast, but I think Clarko just as good, if not better, than Damien Hardwick in my opinion, and that's from a biased Richmond fan. He's already been there a year. Yes, he was on and off with the mental health last year, but this is assuming Clarko coaches the whole year out. I think North Melbourne have a great spine. They've got a good list. They've got players like Larkey, Zerha, LDU, I think it's Simpson. They've just got good players. Now they've lost Mackay, so a little bit touch and go there in the defense, but I think they've got a good list. They have a slight chance of making the finals, so a little watch out for them. Port Adelaide, they are clearly a chance to make finals, especially given their trade window. I think they got in maybe too many tools, but tools that they did need given some departures of Jonas and Scott Lysette. I give them a chance just as much as Melbourne. I'll give them an 89%. I think they're pretty much certain to make the finals next year, but with Ken Hinkley, I don't rate him as a coach. There's always just inconsistency there, so you can never be sure. Richmond, my boys Richmond. I think Richmond have a 9% chance of making the finals this year. Yes, that's a 1 in 10 chance. I've talked about it before in another video. Check out the video where I talk about why Richmond are guaranteed to finish third last. I'm not going to go through everything again because you can just watch that video and you can see in depth the reasons why, from a very knowledgeable Richmond fan, why my club is absolutely fucked next year. Terrible trade period getting Jacob Kaczynski only from Hawthorn, who was bound to be delisted. Losing key players, Soldo a really good ruck. Obviously Trent Cotchin, Jack Rewalt retired, Tom Lynch injured, Dimmer's gone, new coach. There are so many reasons. Fucking Dustin's going to leave as well. There's a load of reasons why, but these guys barely have a chance of making the finals next season. St Kilda. St Kilda for me are such a hard team. In fact, they're one of the hardest teams for me to predict because I think they overachieved this season. Ross Lyon coached very well with all the injuries, and the list they have I don't think is worthy of making finals. Did they do well in the trade period? I think relatively speaking, yes. Out Jack Billings, but in just as bad Paddy Dow. They get Liam Henry, who I like. I think on the basis that Ross Lyon now has another year to build his game style there. They should be better, but also on the basis that I don't think their list is up to it. I still don't think they have quite the talent there in that midfield to break into the finals. I'm going to give them a bang on 50% chance. I think St Kilda could genuinely go either way. It's so hard to tell. For me, it's more so that a lot of teams have better lists than them. Now with Sydney, I think Sydney have a 79% chance of making the finals. Some people have them a lot higher, but I still think you just can't be sure. Purely based off the season that just went, they literally should not have made finals given that Ben Keys goal for Adelaide that should have counted. But they scraped in the finals, obviously didn't do anything. Get out straight on the first week they were out. So it's hard to know where Sydney sit. I think they have the list to make finals. I think the trade window indicates that they'll be looking to bounce back to win the grand final. Experienced Grundy, experienced Adams, like they've brought in some experience. You know, handling as well. A lot of players. I think they have a good chance, but not as good of a chance of teams like Melbourne, Collingwood, Carlton, stuff like that. Two more teams, the West Coast Eagles. Now, the West Coast Eagles, I think, have the lowest chance of everyone. I'll give them 1%. If I could give them any less, I would, but they're a 1% chance of making the finals for me. Do I need to say much more? One of the worst lists I've ever seen in my lifetime since coming out the fucking womb. I haven't seen this bad of a list in a long time. Experienced players retiring, players who are good looking to leave. It's just a shit show and they have no chance. But it will be a fun year for West Coast in the sense that there are no expectations. Play your young players, find some good talent, and you should progress well in the next 3-4 years. But I don't know. On to my last team, the Western Bulldogs. Now, alongside St Kilda and I think Essendon, this team is hard to predict. I've seen talks online that they're less than 50%, but I'm going to give them a 65% chance. That's right, a 2 in 3 chance. The reason being, I don't like Luke Beveridge as the coach. I think he's overrated as shit despite winning a flag and making a grand final. But they have the list to make it. They have a top 4 list. They have the midfield. They have the experience. They have the forward line. They have a lot of the key parts to make the finals. And the thing with Luke Beveridge and the Dogs, they are just inconsistent. One year they're off. Like in 2020, they were off. In 2021, they made the grand final. Like even you could say 2016, they're on. 2017, off. 2018, on, off, on, off, on, off. Every fucking year, on, off, on, off. And now if they were off the season that just passed, next year, next season, relatively speaking, based on that timeline, they should be on. And that's why I give them more than 50% chance to make the finals. But it is a hard one. Overall, how many teams have I given a chance to make the finals? Adelaide have been more than 50%. Brisbane, Carlton, Collingwood, Essendon are touch and go, but I'd say no. Fremantle aren't. Geelong aren't. GWS are. Melbourne are. North Melbourne, no. Gold Coast, no. Port Adelaide, yes. Richmond, no. St Kilda, maybe. I'll say probably no because it is 50%, not over 50%. Sydney, yes. Western Bulldogs, yes. So what? That's about 9, maybe 10 teams you could argue that I've put as a higher than 50% chance to make the finals. So it doesn't make sense in that respect, but that's just what I think, alright? There'll be some angry fans out there. Let me know in the comments if you agree with these percentages. Where would you put your club's percentage on making the finals next year? Make sure you like, subscribe, all the good stuff. Follow the TikTok FTFooty, and I will see you in another video.